You know, I'm really glad they have one of these like mics that hook over your ear and not the kind that clip right here. Because I'm afraid if it was right here, then all you could hear is my heart going thunk, thunk. And it'd be real distracting for all of us. I'm a Texan, in case you couldn't tell. Oh, yes. And I'm a Cajun. So there's another Cajun here. Oh, my God, cousin, hello. So I have like they gave me a couple extra minutes because I talk slower. And I'm really glad of that. So I like a lot of this, you know, I mean, isn't this a great conference? I mean, aren't you so glad you're not at one of those conferences where you go like from an hour-and-a-half session to an hour-and-a-half session of stuff it's just really boring, and you know, and you pay a lot of money, and God, this is so cool. We have a saying in our organization, same tribe. I mean, this is my same tribe. So, and I'm so glad to follow Alex because it goes so well with the story I'm going to tell. And my story, just like so many people you've heard, it began in my family. This is a picture of my family. This is a picture of my family when we weren't quite finished yet. There were just 6 kids there. And my mom, you know, she was pregnant with the 7th. And ultimately, there were 8 of us, and I'm the oldest. I'm the one with the perm. You know, my mother and father, you know, they had a really hard time, and they started off, my father in an orphanage and my mom in the poorest family in the poorest community in the poorest part of the state. But, you know, my mom thought you fought poverty with 2 things, hard work and home perms. And my father just thought you fought poverty by working hard and giving away everything you could. This is not necessarily the regular formula for success. And I remember when we went out into the world, I was old enough in this picture, and I chose it for this reason, because I remember when we'd go to the grocery store, we'd go out in the world, we did it all together, and people would just look at us like there was something wrong with us. You know, I never really knew what they thought was wrong with us. It was just like they thought we weren't going to make it, and we hadn't even started yet. And I just remember them shaking their heads and going, if you've ever been on the other end of that, oh my God, you know how that feels. It kind of hurts because even as a child, I recognized that look, but I didn't know what it meant. But I realized later on that we grew up in a poor neighborhood. I also just realized that clicker thing, I don't have it, and I really need it. And thank you. Boy. Whew. So this was our story in this poor neighborhood, and we lived by the tracks. In fact, we didn't know that was a bad thing because we used to play on the tracks, and we thought the trains were wonderful. But what comes to mind when we think of a poor neighborhood? What? Want to help?
Hunger.
Yeah, crime, hunger. Blight. Oh, blight. Yeah, that's the new name we gave it. We give it a new name every now and then, blight. Darkness. So that was the story of poor neighborhoods, only my parents didn't see it that way, and I didn't see it that way. And everybody I knew, though, saw it that way. When I got out in the world and decided that what I wanted to do was make it possible for everybody in the world to do what my parents did, to have the opportunity to work for a better life, I knew that was my purpose, and I knew when it was young. So I got some training, and here's what I got trained in. I got trained to study poor neighborhoods. And it's the same, whether it's a poor neighborhood or a poor community or a poor state or a poor country, we study it the same way. We study what's wrong with it. We chronicle the lacks, gaps, needs, want, all the broken stuff, and we stack the reports this high. That's how we help. We first go in and we investigate all the ways it doesn't work. And I just ask you, what if when you were going to college, somebody had taken your application and they'd say, tell us everything that's wrong with you. Tell us all the weaknesses. Tell us all the times you failed. Tell us what you don't have. Tell us how much money you've lost. Tell us all the sicknesses. Chronicle your penniless, broken, hopeless self. It doesn't work because you can't build on broken. And when we start there, we go in this terrible, it's a cul-de-sac of misery, I call it. We get in and we can't get out because we study people's brokenness, and then we decide to fix them, and we slap a fix on them, and we chastise them, and we train them, and we do everything we can to make them be more like what we expect them to be, and they just won't be fixed, and then we get mad. And we end up where we started. They must be broken. We start, you're broken. We tried to fix you. You won't be fixed, therefore you're broken. We never get out of that. Over and over and over again, millions of dollars all across our country, all across the world. This is how we help. And it hasn't worked, and it hurts people. I say the human spirit is not extinguishable, but it can definitely be dimmed by this kind of help. And we have to change this, because really nothing ever gets done when you build on broken. We went into a community in Houston. We went into this community that nobody would go into, that the police didn't want to visit, that everybody said was hopeless. It was a miserable place full of graffiti. It had high school, you could recite this with me, high school dropout, non-English speaking, uninsured, low birth weight babies, obese, juvenile crime. You've heard it all. This is the story all across our country, so many neighborhoods. The story is what's wrong with the neighborhood, what's wrong with the people. We went into this neighborhood called Gulfton, and people were coming to this neighborhood from all over the world. It was making Houston the new Ellis Island. 75,000 people from Somalia and Colombia, from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from Indonesia and China. They were there, they were coming there, and they were trusting this country with their dreams. They were taking their hopes for a future, their deepest aspiration for themselves and their children. They were packing themselves in shipping containers. They were swimming the rivers. They were getting to our country in whatever way they could, trusting us to have created a place in which their hard work can make a difference. That's what was going on, but all anyone else saw was the crime and the brokenness and the graffiti and the dropout and the non-English speaking and the uninsured. And we went in with a new question because we saw something different. We saw people with hunger for a better life, willing to work for it, willing to give up anything for their kids. So we asked a new set of questions. What's working in this community? What's strong? We went to people and we said, when you have a challenge with your child, who do you see? Who do you talk to? And when they told us, we went and talked to that person and said, what makes Gulfton great? What makes this a wonderful community? And we found the most incredible people, and we found this wealth of wisdom and knowledge and commitment, this conviction that life could be better, this inspiration to start businesses, this passion for their children and their children's education. It was everywhere we looked and every story we heard. And we went about chronicling that with the same rigor and determination and focus that other people had studied the brokenness. And we began to tell a brand new story. And we took this story out of that neighborhood and we took it to the larger community. And we said, there's life here. And there's potential here. And there's opportunity here. And these are the people we need. If we're going to build an economy, if we're going to build a great country, if we're going to restart a great engine of economic health and opportunity in this region, these are the people. There are no better people, and they found their way here. So when we told this new story, I say, sometimes the job, and if you work in community work, we hear all the time, it's our job to give voice to the voiceless. Well, sometimes we have to give ears to the earless because people don't hear too well. Because what they hear is what they've always heard. So you go out and you think, I have a brand new story. And the first time I went out with this new story of this connected, hardworking, inspired, terrifically creative community, I thought, oh my God, I was really excited right till I got the door. The first person I went to ask for $5 million. And I said, God, I hope this works, because I didn't have the old story about everything that was broken. I didn't have the story about what was missing and all their failures. I had a brand new story. I sat down in front of this man and I said, here it is. Here's this community you've thought all these things about, but let me tell you a new story. And he got tears in his eyes and he said, I've been waiting for one like this. because you see, that's a story we always all want to be a part of. So here we were in the middle of changing the story for this powerful neighborhood in Houston, raising this money. And here comes Katrina. Right out of the sky, right out of the ocean, an enormous hurricane. It was like going through an intersection and being T-boned. We were flying along, and all of a sudden, I get a call, and it goes something like this. Our mayor says, you know, Angela, we got a lot of people coming. I said, yes, Mayor, we do. I've noticed that. He said, well, we're gonna need you. I said, well, what is it you need? He goes, well, you know, do what y'all do. I said, yes, Mayor, got it. That's how we talk in Texas, because we don't have time for elaborate abstractions. We're not good at that. We just are good at doing stuff. So what we had to be good at doing is welcoming over 125,000 people from New Orleans that were heading our way. So we took a step back and we said, you know, this approach of asking people what's right with them, what do they have, what are your skills, strengths, and aspirations, can we trust it? We were challenged to trust it because in the worst of times, our beliefs were challenged. Did we really believe, no matter what, in every community and in any circumstances, everything you need is already there? All the skills and strengths and creativity, all the aspirations, are they still there? And can we work that way when people are sitting in front of us? We were the first people to sit across the table from people as they got off the bus from New Orleans. And they carried in their hand the 1 or 2 articles of clothing, if they were lucky, that they got there with. That was it. And we sat across from them, and the enormity of the loss was overwhelming. How could you begin a conversation with someone in that situation? Could we begin with, what do you have? What can you build on? Well, as it turned out, we committed ourselves to doing just that. We changed the way we asked our questions from the old way to the new way. And we did it in the toughest of times. And we sat in front of them and we said, okay, tell us what you've got to work with. Tell us about your strengths. Tell us what you saved. Tell us about your relationships. And I watched as people sitting in the chair like this, straightened up, and a light came into their eyes because they realized that we saw something in them that we were glad to meet. Their spirit, their humanity, their ability to move forward no matter what. And they began to tell us about what they could do and who they knew and what they had saved and where they had found their family members and what they thought they could offer to our city. And we helped them build new lives in Houston. But it started with that first new question. And it was so powerful to do that in the worst of times, because this is not some Pollyanna positive approach that is just about a good way of thinking. This works everywhere, and it works best when everything seems hopeless, because it never is. As long as there's community and people, there's hope and opportunity and aspiration. And when we ask those questions, when we study it with intensity, we find what we need. I've just gotten back from Australia, where I sat with people who survived a bushfire unlike anything that's ever burned on the face of the earth before. Fires are considered unfightable at 4,600 BTUs. This one was 80,000. It was an inferno. It was hell on earth. And when it was over, they sat together as a community and said, what do we have? What can we build upon? What gives life in this community? What makes us strong? Who's here and what can we do? You see, in disasters, we stop thinking about qualifications and we stop thinking about how everyone looks and whether they show up the way they should. We just think about what's possible and what can we build together. It's an enormous opportunity. And it turns out every time all we have is one another, and it turns out we're enough. So when we build on strengths and aspirations, a whole new future is possible. And in this country today, when we struggle so much to find our way forward, I want to say this to you. There is nothing more powerful than a community in touch with itself. Nothing more powerful than a group of people united in their conviction that what they need is already there. The leaders they need are already there. The possibilities, they exist already in our hearts. We are the only species in the world that creates a life out of our own imagination. Our future is not a product of our past. It's a product of what we collectively agree to. So there's a new story, and I invite you to tell it. I invite you to learn it. I invite you to ask these different questions of yourselves, of your family members, of the people around you, to live in a connected community where you understand the strengths and aspirations of those next door and across the street and across the aisle from you. I invite you to this new story because in it lies all the possibilities for our future. Thank you.